Hi, this is James O'Keefe. I'm captain of the Massachusetts Pirate Party. Thank you for joining us for today's Pirate News. Coming up, we have a conference on the 22nd of July at the Somerville Public Library West Branch. It starts at 10 a.m. and ends about 12:30. If you're interested in joining us, you can check in the description below. There'll be a link to our conference page at masspirates.org. I'm joined today by Steve and Joe. How are the two of you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. And
Thing,
yourself?
things are fine.
I'm doing okay. So Joe, July 4th came up. You want to
Yeah, I just wanted to
start
give
that?
a shout out to everybody. Sorry we didn't get a message out to you, but we hope you had a very wonderful fourth. I just got preoccupied with the most beautiful task ever, which was enjoying my family, and the day just completely like went sideways. But you know how those things go. But I hope you had a very wonderful fourth. For everybody, you're weak, you're meager, you're tired, you're poor. We love you all. So, and especially to all those who have sacrificed and gave the ultimate price in order for us to all get to enjoy this beautiful country. So, I hope you had a wonderful fourth and many more.
Thanks, Joe. So it's you couldn't you couldn't necessarily tell into the last few days, but summer seems to be here. Personally, I've been enjoying the really long Seattle spring we've been having, and so have the raspberries in my front garden. So yay! Um, but it's getting hot, so we hope everyone stays cool this upcoming summer. Um, Speaking of cool or not so cool, via Torrent Freak, they called out that there's a copyright troll called Strike Three Holdings, and they have filed over 1,600 lawsuits just in the first half of this year, and they're on schedule to break their record um, of what they did last year. They're unique in that they actually go and sue individuals, not say ISPs. Um, and in one of their particular cases, so usually a copyright troll or patent troll, any of these types of IP, intellectual privilege trolls, uh, their aim is for whomever is the target of their suit to settle out of court. So they file some paperwork, it doesn't cost them a lot, and then they send some nasty grams and the person forks over, $1,000 or something, and then they go away until they go to the next person. And if they get $1,000 from 1,600 people, that's a lot of money. And so here is a case where there's an actual trial in the Middle District of Florida, which is scheduled to start later this month. And then both Strike Three and the accused pirate will get 4 days to represent their arguments. Thankfully, the judge said Strike Three can be called a copyright troll, even though the lawyers and the company said that it was derogatory and prejudicial. The district court judge, Mary Scriven, said, no, that's fine. They can use that term. And the defense is intent on attacking Strike Three's evidence gathering methodology and the technology they use, while Strike Three, which has a set of holdings in the adult entertainment space, will say that the defendant destroyed important evidence on their computer, which, just a reminder, always go and have a password on your computer and go and turn on encryption on your disks. on your phone, on your computer, any devices you have, your backup disks, whatever.
Use a VPN too.
Sorry, Joe. Say it again.
Use a VPN too.
Absolutely, or Tor for that matter. So Strike Three does have, in order to beat last year's numbers, they have to file another 1,129 suits. So here's to Strike Three losing because they're a copyright troll, and we hate them. So with that,
Can I add one thing to it?
go on. No, please.
Not only are they copyright trolls, would you consider them hoe bags?
Say that again.
Would they be what's the internet term? 403s on top of that?
I'd call them 503s, but
503s?
or what is it? 412. I'm little teapot. Yeah, I'd love that.
No, 403s. If you take the calculator and flip it upside down.
Okay. I was for internet. I was thinking 403 is like do not have access. That's the HTTP status code that I.
So my question is how they are even tracking all these individuals. Like, will they put a little bug in there in their software? Put a little boogie in it.
I wouldn't be surprised if they had little cookies that somehow. My guess would be, and if they're seeding the content for people to get, and then they have some form of tracker, if it's like a website and they get the cookie that's there, and then they can better identify. I mean, so many companies just will be able to track all these cookies. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case, which is why using things like Tor is really important for protecting your privacy. But we'll see how the case goes. So another article that came across our transom, which comes from Tech Dirt, that Steve's going to talk about.
Yeah, so the this I don't know the name of the case, but it basically involves two attorneys general, one from Missouri and one from Louisiana, suing the Biden administration over their claim was that the Biden administration overstepped its bounds in trying to get social media companies to do something about like disinformation, anti-vaccination stuff, and basically said, offered them, from what I understand, offered them the choice between, doing something themselves or, the possibility of considering sort of regulatory action. And, the judge, who I think the name is Terry Doty, but he ruled in favor of the attorneys generals, and basically said the federal government, you're no longer allowed to talk to these to talk to these companies and ask them to do stuff. And it's a little bit of I understand, on one side there is it's reasonable to be concerned about government intrusion into what people say in public spaces. But on the other hand, it's like anything else. This isn't an area where I don't think it's really an absolute. So for example, think of if you can say that, let's hypothetically say, okay, the government shall not ask social media companies to put, take down or to, shouldn't ask social media companies to do things about like anti-vaccination or domestic terrorism kind of stuff, right? In this case, you're basically saying that, well, you're saying that the federal government, you're saying that there are other examples of cases where the our government or our society as a whole might have an interest in stopping disinformation. If you say you can't ask a social media company to influence this kind of content, well, there's for example, there are lots of other things that could potentially fall under that. So if you say you can't, I'm having a brain fart. Anyway, I mean, in terms of things where this might also affect, social media companies might decide that, for example, that, well, they're not really keen on, they think they could, it might be the case where, the company decides, well, we want to do a lot more pornography on our platform. And, free speech, you can't regulate that. Cigarette companies, they might start targeting kids again. Come on, Johnny, be a man, smoke a Marlboro. And again, I think this is an area where, it's kind of the advertiser's ability to do speech and public health benefits, foreign disinformation campaigns, especially during elections, because if it's happened in the last couple of presidential elections and it's going to happen in the next one. I think it would be really cool if, those 7 words that the FTC says you can't say on primetime television. I think it would be really cool to have them on primetime television.
FCC.
FCC. Thank you for that correction. Or
Didn't George Carlin make a whole skit about those words?
He made a whole skit about those words.
There are multiple copies on YouTube and Vimeo and wherever.
Yeah, very funny. And even if there are, this is kind of the kind of thing that even if no matter what side of the aisle you're on, so to speak, there's bad results that could come of this. So, for example, there are conservative states where they don't want doctors telling anyone anything about family management, about abortions, about contraception. Well, they could tell them on social media. So, I think I presume this is going to be appealed. It'll go to the Fifth Circuit Court, and we'll see what they have to say about it. But, this just seems like kind of a bad decision to me. Anyway.
What are your thoughts?
I mean, my thoughts are, where do you draw the line between people's right to say whatever they damn well please versus it being a general ban and FCC coming down? I mean, because if the FCC thinks they're going to come down and tell me what I can and cannot say and when I can and cannot say it, they are going to find out the hard way that I'm going to say anything I damn well please whenever I want. And I think that goes with the majority of Americans. But then again, we're not big corporations. I'm an individual. I'm not like Alex Jones individual, but I'm an individual.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested to see how this plays out.
Yeah, and I mean, Alex Jones is actually sort of a an interesting case in the in this space. I mean, Alex Jones, conspiracy theorist, disinformation mill, right? And
just a brief caveat on Alex Jones, though. The stuff he said about Sandy Hook was absolutely uncalled for, and he got exactly what he deserved. And that's the whole thing. He's free to say it, but he's also free to get the consequences of things you say. Like that old saying that you said, Steve, which is like, if anyone wants to commit political suicide, go ahead and let them.
Go ahead and let them, yeah. So there's, one of the, so I mean, there is I think there is an argument to be made for that, the responsibility shouldn't fall on citizens 100% of the time. There's, government should be acting on their behalf. But, it's one of these things where it's a gray area. There's a gray area. And, you kind of have to think really carefully about the different scenarios before, making a decision one way or the other. And I personally think this, there are a couple of, I don't think the judge thought through this decision very, very thoroughly.
You think? I don't know. I mean, Tech Dirt really lays it out in terms of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And when people in the government were putting pressure, not through legal means, but just through talking, to PayPal to say, hey, shut down money, shut down Wikipedia, WikiLeaks accounts so they can't get any money or stuff like that. We rightly said, hey, that's not cool. And part of that is because we have such a concentration of payment processing, kind of overarching, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, PayPal. And there's more since then, obviously, but there's a lot. There's more, but still a very manageable number that could be threatened.
Just
Yeah.
let's take a twist on it. One of the
Right.
provisions of, say, the Patriot Act was, the requirements that banks and such know a lot of information about their customers, and basically that they do something to take measures to combat things like money laundering, on the premise that the money could be used by terrorist organizations. Is money laundering cool again?
I mean, literally, money laundering is done by all the giant banks, and when they find out about it, they get a slap on the wrist. I mean, come on, Credit Suisse, right? Wasn't Credit Suisse one of the big ones that laundered billions of dollars of money?
Oh yeah. I mean, hey,
I would bring suitcases full of money.
I watched Ozark. I thought it was a good show. It's a touchy area, and I'll say, there's one of these are things that can be beneficial if used in moderation, but they could also be abused.
Absolutely. I mean, but at the same time, sorry, let me just finish this train of thought. Sure. The government has free speech as well. So if the CDC will go and say, well, based on the available information that we have from research about COVID-19 transmission, you should get vaccinated, you should wear masks, although that was a little far too, that took far too long to come. Or and that's a legitimate speech. They have the ability to communicate that. Likewise, I mean, like Twitter, the whole Twitter files kerfuffle. The Twitter has a way for anyone to come and say, hey, this content here doesn't meet your terms and conditions. And like the Hunter Biden dick pics, right? Someone got those dick pics and then they went and they wanted to put them out there. And it's like, I don't think anyone's dick pics should be out there, and they certainly shouldn't be there unsolicited. We shouldn't go to media site, you can see Hunter Biden naked or certain parts of his anatomy naked. I mean, I think that's right to go for the Biden campaign, or for the government to say, hey, Twitter, that's by your own terms and conditions, that's not allowed, right?
Yeah. On that
Um,
note, don't look up Harry Jiggler. But
like, oh, some people are going to go look it up. Not me. I don't care.
yeah, just
You
don't.
do you.
It's not pay-per-view. So let's just say it that way. Uh, but on a serious note, the it's like any social program, like whether it be welfare or UBI, which I'm hoping to get some case study work done on, in order to build our solid platform on that. But there's always going to be a loophole that somebody's going to take advantage of. That's part of any system you build. There's going to be holes and gaps in it. It doesn't mean that those programs aren't benefiting thousands of people. So, and I kind of view it as the same. I'd rather let 10 guilty people go free than have that one innocent person in jail. So I would rather see us put security and get rid of the Patriot Act because it was just garbage legislation done on fear mongering. But I would rather have the money laundering back and then not have the government up my wallet. Because guess what? That's going to save a ton of money in the economy because they're going to need to take so much taxes less because there's so many less people that could actually be going out getting rid of the criminals that are like murdering people and stuff like that. We don't need the patrolman at Walmart trying to like stop the guy with the toothpaste. We could actually be sending out cops to go and get the actual dangerous people off the thing. Go and help get more money into the mental health and support and the homeless and getting people back to work and getting people's feet back underneath them and actually taking care of the people who actually need it. So I think the latest term that we're kind of tossing around is citizen dividend instead of straight UBI, which I kind of like.
That's got a nice ring to it.
Well, I mean, it's instead of it being universal basic income, or like, because universal basic income to me is kind of like welfare state, but where we're automating everything, especially in these large, vast societies, getting your basic needs met, a dividend, so you can make sure that you have enough to eat and have shelter, sounds a lot better. So that's my 2 cents.
Sure. So you had a story about a previous government program we withdrew from and the effects of that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go too much into Iran because I want to run from it, but apparently they just struck a deal with Russia to get nuclear material. And so, of course, all the right-wing media outlets are going like, warning, warning, Dr. Smith. But it's Russia's kind of agreed to start helping Iran on that. And it's really interesting because now it looks like, not to say World War III happening, but the Institute of War is now following major scaling conflicts between Afghanistan and Iran, as Iran is getting to the point where they can have nuclear weapons. So, so basically the Taliban and Iran. Oh, what was that famous quote? Too bad both sides can't lose. But, because I'm not really thrilled about either side, but, it's one of those things where Afghanistan are poor farmers versus Iran, which are mostly farmers. There's no win-win there. And I think the conflict is major between those two is made mostly about the water, because a lot of the water comes out of Afghanistan into Iran. And so there's been border conflicts going on there. It really started like May, at the end of May, and a little bit this month. And so we're seeing some major armament up right there. And now with Russia striking a deal with Iran about getting more nuclear material for Iran, kind of a cause of concern. I'm not really sure where it's going to lead. It may be for power production, but only time will tell.
I mean, Iran has gone and said their program is purely civilian. We had the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action that the Trump administration withdrew us from. And one of the provisos of that was for Iran to give its most enriched uranium to Russia for safekeeping. And so now that in essence the agreement is sort of moot since the US withdrew from it, and the US cannot commit that if they come back into it on whatever terms Iran would require them to fulfill, there's no guarantee that the next administration won't just yank us out of it again. So in some ways, I kind of feel like this is going back to what it was before. We had an agreement. We, the United States, withdrew from that agreement. Iran's going to do what Iran's going to do. I mean, they want to get nuclear power. The oil's only going to last so long.
I mean, you would think that being in the location that they are, they would look more heavily into solar, but what do I know?
Maybe they are also doing that. I don't know.
I think a large part of Iran
Diversity.
is agricultural. A lot of it's farming and them feeding themselves and an agricultural economy. So I think that's a big part of it, which would make sense why they don't want to go solar, because they have to get food from somewhere.
Yep.
And that's all I have for this evening.
Okay. Any other thoughts, Steve?
Nothing here.
Well, with that, thanks to the two of you, Joe and Steve. We have a meeting coming up this Thursday at 9:00. An open a member meeting. All members are welcome to attend. You can go to masspirates.org and find out the link to that. We're going to be moving over to a new video conferencing system, either Big Blue Button, which is what we use, somewhere else, or some other platform. If you have any suggestions, send us an email, info@masspirates.org. We'd love to hear your ideas. We'd prefer not to use something like Zoom, but Jitsi, which we use an awful lot, has its limitations as well. So, as always, you can find us at masspirates.org. If you like this, you know what to do. And thanks so much, folks. Have a wonderful week. Hope to talk with some of you, or many of you, on Thursday. And don't forget, our conference is on the 22nd in person in this great city of Somerville, at the Somerville Public Library West Branch, Davis Square, Somerville, right on the MBTA. There's parking around, but you should probably go and take the subway or bike. I know Steve will do that.
Yeah.
All right, take care, folks. Bye.
All right, bye.
Goodbye.
We're done. Thank you very much.